up, everybody? It's the new year, 2020. Happy New Year. Nice big slate tonight to get into. We're going to talk about a couple of things before we talk about the actual slate, kind of how this thing breaks down and how you should start building lineups, what contests you should be looking to get into, things of that nature. The multi-lineup entry is a lot tougher to do during NBA because everybody's so much more informed than they have been in years past. You've probably noticed that with where cash lines are, even the pay line and GPPs, everything is a lot higher, and that's because the ownership across the board on a small amount of players is so high. Everybody's just much more informed when it comes down to, injuries and plugging players in. It doesn't mean you can't take a tournament down. It doesn't mean you can't have success doing multi-lineup entry, but it's more about picking your spots and finding the tournaments that have literally the best payouts and the highest payout percentages. For example, tonight, the big tournament, the big $7 tournament, is a 21% pay line. There's a 4-entry max $100 tournament that's 25% pay line. Two reasons why that's a much better tournament. The obvious reason, looking at it, you're going to look at it and you're going to say, well, if I win that tournament, first place in the $100 tournament is $2,500. And it is. It's 25x or 2.5x, however you want to look at it. So the win is not the big lottery ticket win that a lot of people look for when they multi-lineup enter. 100K to first place, $7.77. 150 entries. Here's the deal. There are a ton of people who have the ability now to max enter a $7.77 tournament. There are a ton of sites out there that offer an optimizer. So this really becomes about luck, right? It's not about, am I a better player than you? Because I can't, and here's what it comes down to, leverage. The whole point of max entering a tournament is to out leverage the field. And when the number of people who are max entering gets to a certain point to where you lose leverage on the field, it becomes more about luck than it does about skill. So let's talk about comparing the $7.77 tournament to the $100 tournament that I'm talking about. $2,500 to first place, 25% pay line. 136 people are in the tournament. Or I should say there's 136 entries available. The max entry is 4. So this becomes about skill. Am I a better player than you? This is where you want to live, especially in a sport like NBA. It's not NFL where the opportunity to take down these huge tournaments is only once every, 5 days. Figuring, there's 4 to 5 different slates for NFL. This is every single night. NBA is every single night, right? And this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. You're trying to be profitable over the course of a season. So transition, if you're a multi-lineup entry guy, even if you're playing the quarter every night, that's $37 a night to max enter it. I would much rather see you get in the $12 5-entry max where everybody in the field has 5 entries for the most part, or the 3-entry max $65 tournament. Now it's about skill. It's about, whose research is better, who has the emphasis on the right statistical categories. Let's talk about those for a second. Fantasy basketball is about a few things, and it's really one simple equation. Minutes equal usage plus matchup, fantasy points per minute, production. So is the player getting the minutes? You don't want to stack your lineup full of guys that are getting 25 minutes. Usage. When the player's on the floor, what is the player doing on the floor? The ball in his hand? Is he distributing? Is he handling the basketball? Is he making quality passes? Is he getting assists? Is he scoring points? You don't want a bunch of 29 to 33 minute guys who have a usage rate of 16. The matchup. Is it an exploitable matchup? Is this team weak against this position? Fantasy points per minute. A .50 guy in a really good matchup that is consistently a starter, getting 27 minutes, and he's averaging 0.75 fantasy points per minute, is not a good play. It's not a good play. But if there's a bench player who's getting 25 to 27 minutes a night, and he's a 0.75 fantasy point per minute guy, and there's an injury that elevates said player into the starting lineup, and he's going to get a boost of 6 to 8 more minutes, he is going to be underpriced. That's a good play. We can anticipate based off of things we know are already happening that this player will have an increased opportunity. That's a player we want to target. So minutes, usage, matchup, fantasy points per minute, and overall production. You don't want to fall in love with players that are in a good matchup and they're dependent on one statistical category. There's a couple of guys that are the prime example of this. CJ McCollum and Bogdanovich. If they don't score the basketball, they will not have value in return for that particular slate. They just won't return their value. So these are the things we're looking at, right? These are the things we're looking at. Now, here's where the tricky part comes into play, okay? The two different sites. FanDuel notoriously year in and year out has guys misplaced when it comes to the position they're actually playing versus the position they're listed at on FanDuel. Hence, DraftKings gives you dual eligibility. And even then, if you're paying attention to just the DVP rankings on DraftKings, you're not going to know, is this DVP ranking for the shooting guard spot or the small forward spot? If the guy has dual eligibility, or is it, for the point guard spot? What is this DVP number for, and what is this DVP number even based on that they're generating? So don't pay attention to the red and green and shit numbers that they've got on FanDuel and DraftKings, because you don't know what that is based off of. You have no idea what goes into that. So the tough part is figuring out where the player's playing and where he's listed on the site and what eligibility he has to figure out how to get leverage on the field. A perfect example of a guy tonight to get leverage on the field with, I would say Alec Burks, but Alec Burks is probably going to be just chalk anyhow because of his price and the minutes increase, etc. Enough people know that, hey, Golden State's down D'Angelo Russell, and they've got guys that are out tonight, and Alec Burks has been playing okay, and he's $5,600 on FanDuel, so I'm going to put him in a small forward spot. He'll be chalky. But he's listed as small forward. He's playing point guard. So the opportunity to get another high usage guy in your lineup, like a Devontae Graham or an Alec Burks, Devontae Graham, for all intents and purposes, is playing the point guard position for the Charlotte Hornets. So you can have a third point guard, even a fourth point guard in your lineup tonight if you were to load up 2 regular point guards plus Devontae Graham and Alec Burks. Take a look at the center spot. Serge Ibaka is another guy. He's playing the center spot. He's listed as a power forward. So the opportunity to get 2 centers in your lineup tonight by playing a true center plus a guy like a Serge Ibaka or a Rashawn Holmes, you're getting 2 centers in your lineup. They are not playing power forward. They are playing center. The last thing, increased, and we touched on it just a bit already, increased, decreased value based off of injury. And that could go 3 different ways, okay? With a guy sitting, a guy returning, or a guy who's injured. If it's a guy who's injured, he's going to be out for multiple weeks, the play becomes a bit more obvious because if somebody misses it tonight and a team's on a back-to-back and the guy goes off in the spot, chances are a lot of people are going to be all over him on the back-to-back side, even because of the chance that or the point that the pricing won't catch up on a back-to-back unless the injury is named super early in the day on the first end of the back-to-back. So value is not, you have to figure it in different terms, right? What's the increased value of the injury? Player A goes out, player B is going to start. Look at the entirety of the equation. What's his fantasy points per minute? How much of a boost can I count on this guy getting? Because just plugging somebody in because they're going to start, you may get away with it once, but you will get burned by it more than you will benefit from it. Understanding that Aaron Holiday is not going to get much of a boost tonight with Brogdon out. Why? Let's take a look at that. You take a look at Malcolm Brogdon. Malcolm Brogdon's been out with a back injury. He missed the Toronto game on December 23rd. He missed the Miami game on December 27th. He missed the New Orleans game on December 28th. He played 7 minutes on New Year's Eve, had 2 assists and 1 turnover, and that was it. Who benefits? Just roll in the standard chalk play. Brogdon's ruled out today. Who benefits? 9 out of 10 people listening to this podcast are going to say Aaron Holiday. And he does. He does benefit from it. But how much and where? Well, let's just take a look at, go back to December 15th. December 15th against Charlotte, Aaron Holiday played 20 minutes. Remember, Brogdon's been out December 23rd, December 27th, December 28th. Okay? Before he went out, Aaron Holiday was already playing 30 minutes a game, between 30 and 32 minutes. The 3 games that Brogdon's missed, and even the 7 minutes he played on New Year's Eve, the minutes for Aaron Holiday have stayed the same. 30, 29, 33, 30. Is there a huge increase here for him? He's kind of playing the same role, except he's not coming in off the bench, but he's kind of pleased with the starters. Those are there. But if he's playing 30 minutes already and he's been playing 30 minutes during the injury and he's priced at 5,100 and you take a look at what he averages, he's right under 6x. He's kind of at the 5.2x with maybe the upside of an 8x on this price tag. This is not oh my God, this guy's going to benefit so much. He's minimum value. He's got the chance to go 10x tonight. He's not. It's a cash game kind of play because he's got a pretty good floor with a decent ceiling. It will be a chalky play in comparison to a guy who's also on this team with Edmund Sumner now being ruled out. You take a look at Edmund Sumner, and what has he brought to the table? Between 13 and 20 minutes. During the stretch that Brogdon was out, he played 17, he played 13, he played 19 minutes. So is there an increased role here with not only Brogdon out, but Sumner out? Absolutely there is. Enter TJ McConnell. Enter TJ McConnell. You look at the last 2 games he played, 27 and 24 minutes. Playing between 15 and 18 minutes with Brogdon and a healthy starting lineup and a healthy rotation. Played 24 and 27 minutes. There's a 7-minute increase here on TJ McConnell. When you look at TJ McConnell, from a fantasy points per minute standpoint, is there an opportunity for him to have an increased role here? Absolutely, yes, there is. And we know that this guy can dish the basketball. Multiple 10 assist games already this year, multiple 6+ assist games already this year. McConnell could dish the basketball. At $4,100 in tournaments today, TJ McConnell is a great tournament play because of the open minutes that need to be filled by somebody, and you have Aaron Holiday who's already playing in the 30-minute range even with Brogdon healthy. So, McConnell is going to get a bit of a boost. Holiday may get a couple minute boost, but the biggest boost to the guy with the best price here is McConnell. 24 points out of McConnell, who's probably going to see an extra 6 to 8 minutes, is a much better play than the just throwing in Aaron Holiday because there's an injury and it looks like Aaron Holiday is the guy that you just want to throw in there. This is the tricky part to figure out, okay? You can't just look straight across the board and say, I'm going to throw this guy in and not realize that where I'm listing him and the DVP numbers I'm looking at, all of this stuff may not even be relevant to this person because I haven't even looked to see if he's playing the same position that he's listed at, like Devontae Graham, like Alec Burks, like Serge Ibaka. So really quick, we'll touch on a couple of things. That's some strategy stuff that we'll keep talking about as the rest of the NBA season goes on. Kristaps Porzingis is ruled out. Malcolm Brogdon has been ruled out. Willie Cauley-Stein has been ruled out. D'Angelo Russell and Kevin Looney also ruled out. Markieff Morris ruled out. Blake Griffin and Jeff Teague are doubtful. Right off the bat, that should just ring a ding-ding, a little bit of value. With Blake Griffin doubtful and Markieff Morris out. Langston Galloway comes to mind. He'll come to mind for a lot of people, but really, Christian Wood is the guy that should pop into your mind. Christian Wood, we've seen him in this spot. It gives you an opportunity to have some late game exposure. But at $4,100, Christian Wood, we've seen him play in this spot before without Griffin. You look at his last 3 games, he's played 28, 22, and 23 minutes. He's at 34.9, 12.7, and 19.8. It's not the most favorable matchup for a power forward. But you got a guy like Drummond who's going to play next to, and Drummond should just dominate the paint against Zubac. On the flip side of that, with no Blake Griffin, with the Christian Wood playing, with Andre Drummond playing, Montrezl Harrell, who eats up a ton of minutes off the bench and is one of the higher usage players off the bench on the slate, really good spot for him also. Really good spot for him also. The value on the board today, I'm going to touch on a couple of these guys before we move on to the overall slate. Point guard, you have Colin Sexton, Seth Curry, Goran Dragic, Aaron Holiday, Jalen Brunson, and TJ McConnell. Shooting guard Lou Williams is extremely cheap. Delon Wright, small forward, we'll have to wait and see on injuries, but Jared Culver, definitely Alec Burks. Power forward Wood, Maxi Kleber, Marquise Chris, Royce O'Neal, Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, if he starts again, is a really good play. And the center spot, Dwight Powell, Wendell Carter, and Montrezl Harrell. That's your value. So we've covered ruled out, we've covered doubtful. There's your value on the slate. Let's talk about the slate overall. 9 games on the slate. Charlotte's at Cleveland. Cleveland is -1.5. It's a 212 over-under. Denver is at Indiana. Indiana is -1.5. 210.5 over-under. Toronto at Miami. Miami -5.5. 214.5 over-under. Utah at Chicago. Utah's -3.5. 210.5 over-under. The Warriors are at Minnesota. Again, no D'Angelo Russell. No Cauley-Stein, no Kevon Looney. We don't know the availability of Towns, Wiggins, or Teague. Teague is doubtful. That game currently, Minnesota's -4 with a 215.5 over-under. Brooklyn is at Dallas. A lot of action should be here. There should be a lot of ownership in this game. Dallas is -8.5, 221.5 is the over-under. Oklahoma City is at San Antonio. The Spurs -2.5, 218 overall. Memphis at Sacramento, 224.5. Sacramento -4.5. And then the last game of the slate, Detroit is at the Clippers. Blake Griffin looks doubtful. Keith Morris out. The Clippers are -12.5 with a 223.5 over-under. Where are the best spots on this slate? First of all, I'm going to tell you, I anticipate it to be a chalk play, but rightfully so. Rightfully so. Luka Doncic is off the charts in every category. The matchup, he's got one of the top 2 matchups on the slate at the point guard position. Usage, 38.4 usage rate for Doncic, highest on the slate. The minutes, Doncic minutes are not great in comparison. I kind of break them down into a couple different categories, but 36 to 48 is elite. Then you got 30 to 35 minutes. That's where a lot of these guys are going to fall into. So anybody over 36 is elite for me. He's kind of a 32.5-minute guy. He played 32 against San Antonio, 30 against Golden State, 30 against the Lakers, and played 40 minutes on New Year's Eve against Oklahoma City. He hasn't played 40 minutes very many times this season. He really stays between 32.5 and 35 minutes. But that's the only category where he's not elite on this slate from a minute standpoint. In comparison, the most amount of minutes the point guard position is Lowry. He's playing 38 minutes a game right now. And that's for obvious reasons. They just don't have guys. They're down guys. Siakam, Gasol, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Norman Powell. So fantasy points per minute, he's the highest at the point guard position. He's, in fact, the highest on the slate at 1.75 fantasy points per minute. Just load this guy up. There's not really a reason to be contrarian in this spot. The contrarian or the differentiating of lineups, in my opinion, is at the point guard number 2 spot. Because there's a lot of solid plays at the point guard number 2 spot. The shooting guard position, this is where it gets a little bit interesting because there's guys listed at the wrong spot, if you will. They're playing their actual reality, real basketball position they're playing is different from where they're listed on, especially FanDuel. And the 2 guys that you can look at are vice versa, if you will. Paul George is playing the shooting guard position, playing the off guard. Devontae Graham is listed as a shooting guard, but he's playing the point guard position. And from a matchup standpoint, Graham is tied with Doncic for the best matchup on the slate. From a usage standpoint, top 5 usage of point guards on the slate, 26.6 for Graham. He's playing 34.3 minutes per game, almost at an elite level by my rankings. So to me, kind of building out a core, Doncic would be my point guard core. Graham, I really like at the shooting guard core. You start looking at matchup and minutes and usage. Shooting guard's a little bit more, small forward's a little bit murkier because guys are just all over the place from where they're actually playing and where they're listed at. You look at Royce O'Neal playing the small forward listed as a power forward. You look at Bogdanovich, listed as a small forward playing power forward. So small forward is a little bit harder to figure out, but the first guy that I want to plug in because of the things I've mentioned already, minutes, usage, fantasy points per minute, production, etc., is Alec Burks. And you start to see where you're building this core out at. What you're trying to maximize here is the highest amount of usage and minutes in your lineup. So many people want to optimize around projections and value. Value's fine. That's built into our algorithm. But you need to get the most amount of projected minutes and usage into your lineup because that minutes and usage equal opportunity. That's the only thing you can control. You cannot control the fact that you make the right play based off of getting the most amount of minutes, the most amount of usage in your lineup against the best matchup on the slate, and then the guy goes out and shoots 1 for 17. You can't do anything about that. But what you can do is you can make sure that you don't have a guy not in your lineup who is getting the most amount of production, meaning minutes, usage, best matchup, and he goes off for 40, 10, and 10, and you didn't have him in your lineup because you were basing your off projections. So right off the bat, you start building a core here, and you've got 3 point guards, and 2 of them are listed at different positions. You've got Devontae Graham at shooting guard, who's really playing point guard. Alec Burks at small forward, who's really playing point guard. And Luka Doncic, who's really playing point guard at point guard. So we've got 3 point guards in our core built out so far. The bottom half of this, you can get 2 centers now. There's a lot of good matchups at the center spot. Tristan Thompson, Rudy Gobert, Serge Ibaka, who's listed as a power forward. We'll have to see about Towns, but Gorgie Jang, Andre Drummond, Jonas Valanciunas, and Rashawn Holmes. Holmes and Ibaka are not listed at center on FanDuel. So there's the opportunity to get 2 centers in your lineup by rolling out like an Ibaka and somebody else. So my core that I'm starting with today, at the moment when we're doing this podcast, is Doncic, Graham, Burks, Ibaka. Those are my 4 core guys. The center spot I'm leaving open because I'm going to do a couple of different things with center and power forward. The top guys on this slate from a usage standpoint, if you were building out a core, you'd want to try to get some combination of Doncic, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, bench players like Derrick Rose and Lou Williams at good prices that are playing a lot of minutes and have high usage. Derrick Rose is at 1.24 fantasy points per minute. Derrick Rose is playing a lot of minutes. He's got a 31.9 usage rate, which, if he was starting, would be the 4th highest usage rate on the slate for point guards. But he's playing a lot of minutes. He looks like, I saw a comparison the other day. The year Derrick Rose won the MVP, his numbers were not as good as Derrick Rose, who's coming off the bench right now. It says a lot about how much the NBA game has changed over the past 10 years. So that's kind of where this thing is at, right? That's the core that I've built out today. That's based off trying to get you to understand how to build these lineups out and not just relying simply on an optimizer and taking a shot in the dark and trying to win a lottery ticket. You're going to lose a lot of money. To recap, let's find tournaments that have a pay line above 22% that you can get equal to the field leverage on or better with your entries. And those are, the 3 entry max, etc. Make it about skill, not about luck. It's supposed to be a game of skill, not a game of chance. Make it that way. Use your bankroll to your advantage. You do that by finding tournaments that you can get equal or better leveraging. And here's what you're saying, right? I know what you can say is, well, if I can get 150 lineups in a max in max enter the $7, what's the difference in, everybody can get, 4 entries in the $100 or 3 entries in the $65? How am I going to get leverage? Because everybody's going to play that tournament. They're all going to have 3 entries. Well, for one, that evens the playing field. Everybody's got 3 entries. Where you get leverage is with your research, and you say, I'm a better player than you are. Because the playing field is now equal. Luck is out of the equation. Now it's about, I'm better than you. And just like we'll say in baseball, there's going to be days where you just tip your cap and you move on to the next day. But make it about the process. Make it about the research. Don't make it about luck. When you're building your lineups out, here's the things to consider: minutes, usage, matchup, fantasy points per minute, and production. Where are the players actually playing and where are they listed? Can I get an advantage there? Like tonight, I can get 3 point guards in my lineup tonight and 2 centers. If I play the right guys, the right spots. increase or decrease in value based off injury from a guy sitting, or he's injured, or a guy returning. The example I'll give you is Gorgie Zhang. If Karl Anthony Towns plays tonight, he is so far overpriced, his value has been decreased, and you cannot play him. It seems very simple, but the obvious sometimes needs to be pointed out. Those are the things you've got to take a look at every single day when you're constructing your lineup and trying to find a core and a player pool to fit in around your core to make the best decisions possible. The best players, in my opinion, tonight at each position: Devontae Graham, Luka Doncic, Alec Burks, Aaron Holiday, Landry Shamet, and De'Aaron Fox. I'm going to give you where they're playing, not where they're listed. Those are point guards. Shooting guard: Dylan Brooks, Jalen Brunson, Joe Ingles, Damon Lee, Bruce Brown if he plays, and Fred VanVleet. Small forward: Crowder, Bridges, Smith, O'Neal, Barnes, and Glenn Robinson III. Power forward: as it sits right now, I really like Robert Covington. Really, really like Sabonis. It's hard to fit Sabonis and Ibaka in together. Beliza will be off the board. Kevin Love, I like playing a lineup that has, Kevin Love in one and then Tristan Thompson in the other. The matchup for Cleveland tonight is really good against Charlotte. Charlotte's a terrible rebounding team. They give up a ton of rebounds, putbacks, second chance points, etc. The center position: Tristan Thompson, Rudy Gobert, Serge Ibaka, Gorgie Zhang if he plays. If not, you can plug Karl Anthony Towns into that spot. Towns won't be very owned tonight if he does play. But here's the thing. I suspect that he'd have a minutes limit if he played tonight. And that would pretty much eliminate him from consideration because his price is so high. The matchup is good. And again, there's no Willie Cauley-Stein. There's no Kevon Looney. I mean, the Warriors are playing with a bunch of wings right now. Marquise Chris is playing the center spot for the Warriors. Another guy on FanDuel listed in the wrong spot, listed power forward. So, I mean, if you wanted to get kind of, different, you could literally have three centers in your lineup with Ibaka, Chris, and Drummond. Some combination like that. Ibaka, Chris, Dwight Powell, some combination like that. And then 3 point guards with Doncic, Devontae Graham, Alec Burks, really 4 point guards, because your point guard number 2, you can also fill a point guard. So, you'd have 4 point guards and 3 centers in your lineup tonight. It's really a way to be different. So looking at it from that standpoint, you can see how you can really differentiate yourself by looking at where players are actually playing and not where they're listed. So good luck tonight. I'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Deep Dive. Until then, be cool, keep it cashing. Peace out.